What's up everyone, Darcblade here with another Hunter's Guide to Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. In this video, we're going to be bringing you another endgame build, this time again for the bow. Now what is an endgame build? Well, it's a build that is constructed from some of the rarest armor, weaponry, and decorations in the game. These builds also feature curious crafting, but it's not to the extent where everything is unobtainable. Now as always, if you find these videos helpful, entertaining or enjoyable, please consider leaving a like on the video as well as subscribing to the channel, as it does help and I try to bring you a variety of builds for a variety of different playstyles. Now when it comes to the bow in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, some of you may know that it's my favourite weapon. Whilst I may not be the best at the bow, it's the one I enjoy the most. It's excellent at dealing elemental damage and has great evasion capabilities, however it is a little bit fragile. It's also a stamina heavy weapon, but with Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak there are a fair few skills that give us infinite stamina, and that is what I'm going to show off in this build. So with that I present to you the Heave-Sent Bow build. This build is all about utilising the Heave-Sent to give us infinite stamina, increased dodge capabilities, as well as decent elemental damage output. So for this you'll need the Tempest Crown, the Tempest Robe, the Tempest Sleeves, the Omnio Eteobi, and the Tempest Karma. For your Petalace, go with either the Demon Petalace for extra damage or the Absolute Petalace for extra health. And then finally for your Talisman, no one's going to have the exact same talismans unfortunately, but try to get a talisman with as much attack boost and Adrenaline Rush on it as possible. I got an attack boost level 3, Adrenaline Rush level 2 and a tier 4 decoration slot. As for your weapon, this is an interchangeable bow build so you can get away with using any of the elemental bows in the game. For the demonstration of this video, I'll be showing off a water bow build, which uses the Daimyo Hemator bow. If you wanted to use a ice bow, use the Velkhana bow. For thunder, use the Kezu bow. For fire, use the Rathian bow. And for dragon, use either the gold Rathian bow or the Valstrax bow. Of course, these all favour spread arrows, which is my preferred way to play the bow. As for the curious crafting on your weapon, if you're using a bow that doesn't have it, take a rampage slot upgrade. If not, go for increasing the weapon's elemental damage. So when it comes to the decorations, you've got a lot to play around with. So first of all, I'd recommend taking Stream Jewels to max out water attack. Remember, if you're using a different bow with a different element, you'll replace these Stream Jewels to match whatever new element you're using. I've then gone for Chain Jewels to max out the burst skill, however when using different bows this will only be at level 2. I've then gone for a Daora Soul Jewel for the Rampage decoration to give us increased affinity when we're attacking a monster continuously. I've then gone for a Mighty Bow Jewel, Spread Jewels. Remember, if you're using a different bow with a different arrow type, you would replace the Spread Jewels to match whatever new arrow type you are using. I've then gone for Attack Jewels to max out Attack Boost, Tenderizer Jewels to max out Weakness Exploit, Jumping Jewels to max out Evade Extender, Intrepid Heart to have a point in the Intrepid Heart skill, Blade Scale Jewel for a couple points in the Blade Scale Hone skill, a Shockproof Jewel, which not all versions of this build may have, to give us the Shock Absorber skill, Challenger Jewels to max out Agitator, and Embolden Jewel to max out the Embolden skill. Now some of you may be wondering why I haven't taken any stamina related decorations, and that is mainly because I am relying on Dash Juice, the Dango Fighter buff, and the Focus Shot. Whilst these don't provide optimal stamina management with the bow, they normally give you a long enough boost to allow you to trigger Heave-Sent, to which afterwards, so long as you're not getting hit, you won't have to worry about stamina whatsoever. However, I will say you can potentially drop some of the attack decorations if you wanted to for refresh decorations or constitution decorations if you're feeling uncomfortable. So if you've done what I've done here, you'll have a build with a fluctuating raw attack, which by default is 434, which can potentially be higher when skills like Agitator are in effect. You have a water rating of 35. Again, this potentially can be higher depending on the curious crafting on your weapon. You'll then have an affinity rating of 0%, but this can be potentially 80% when you take into account all our buffs, which include Agitator, Weakness Exploit, and the Daora Soul Rampage skill. You also have a defense of 921 that is strong against water, neutral against thunder, but weak to the other elements. Now as for the switch skills, these are down to personal preference. I always recommend taking Dodge Bolt. I'd also recommend taking Focus Shot on one of your scrolls for when Heave-Sent isn't in effect. So as for the skills, first of all you'll have Attack Boost at level 7. Attack Boost is a skill that increases the raw attack of the build, and at level 4 or above grants us a percentage bonus to our raw attack. Attack Boost at level 7 may not be an option for everyone, depending how far you are through the game, and depending if you wanted to take stamina management decorations. You'll then have Agitator at level 5, which is a skill that kicks in whenever a monster becomes enraged. When this happens, we'll gain bonus raw attack and base affinity. You'll then have Water Attack at level 5, increasing the water rating and thus the water damage of this build. Remember, if you're using a different bow with a different element, you'd replace Water Attack to match whatever new element you were using. You then got Evade Window at level 5, which is a skill that greatly, or massively should I say, increases the invulnerability window when we're dodging attacks. It's basically a survival skill. You'll then have critical boost at level 3, increasing the damage of our attacks when they crit a monster, but only applies to the raw portion of an attack, not the elemental portion. You'll then have weakness exploit at level 3, increasing our affinity by up to 50% when we're attacking monster weak points. You'll then have spread up at level 3, increasing the damage of spread arrows. Remember, if you're using a different bow with a different arrow type, you would replace the spread up skill and the spread decorations to match whatever new arrow type you are using. You'll then have evade extender at level 3. This is an optional skill in all honesty, but I do enjoy using it because it adds to our survivability and makes things feel a little bit more comfortable. You'll then have adrenaline rush at level 3, which is a skill that when we dodge an attack at the right time, will gain increased raw attack. And thanks to evade window and evade extender, we should be able to activate this quite often. You'll then have embolden at level 3, which is a skill that makes monsters become enraged more easily, but in doing so, will gain increased defense and invincibility frames when dodging. This works well in unison with the agitated skill, as it will allow us to enrage a monster more often, granting us those bonuses. Anyway, next up is burst at level 3, or for most versions of this build, if you're not using the Daimyo Heave-Sent Bow, will be level 2, which is a skill that after continuously landed attacks on a monster, it will gradually build up our raw attack and elemental attack. Next up is Heave-Sent at level 3, which is the namesake of this build. Heave-Sent is a skill that activates when not taking damage for a while during combat with a large monster. The Heave-Sent buff can be seen by a swirling whirlwind around your hunter. This will remain in effect until you are knocked back or stray too far away from a monster. Another one of the reasons why I prefer spread arrows with this build. But what does Heave-Sent do? Well, when active, first of all it would decrease damage once and reduce stamina consumption. At level 2 it reduces the time needed to activate Heave-Sent, and then finally at level 3, which is the main reason we are using it, when active it will nullify stamina consumption, and performing a skill swap will remove or reduce status ailments. So the main reason we are taking this is for the infinite stamina basically. Heave-Sent is easier to activate than the Furious skill, which is one of the other infinite stamina skills, and has less risk than the Berserk Strife combo, which is the other skill to give players infinite stamina. But anyway, next up is Blade Scale Hone at level 2, which is a skill that when we dodge an attack at the right time, it will buff our close range coatings, making them almost on par with power coatings. This is good in prolonged fights. You'll then have Bow Charge Plus at level 1, an essential skill for the bow, as this increases our maximum charge levels. When you go to craft a bow, you'll see that normally the last arrow level is grayed out and locked. Bow Charge Plus basically unlocks this, allowing us to deal more damage overall. You'll then have Knell of Hellfire at level 1, which is a skill that you can potentially drop, to be honest, but it will increase our damage. When using a red scroll, it will increase our raw attack, but decrease our defense, and when using a blue scroll, it will increase our elemental attack, but reduce our elemental resistances. You'll then have Spirit Bird Call at level 1, which is a quality of life skill I like to use. This is a skill that basically allows you to receive the effects of random spirit birds at fixed intervals during a hunt, reducing the need to go out of your way to actually gather spirit birds. You'll then have Intrepid Heart at level 1, which is a useful defensive and quality of life skill and works well with Heave-Sent. Intrepid Heart gives your hunter a blue bar above their health bar, which fills up as you attack a monster. When full Intrepid Heart kicks in, to which, should you take an attack that would knock you back, that damage is reduced and the attack reaction ignored. This can also prevent the Heave-Sent buff from being deactivated should you take a hit. And then finally, you'll have Shock Absorber at level 1, which disables damage reactions when you hit an ally or an ally hits you. So a quality of life skill for playing multiplayer. But those are all the skills available to the Heave-Sent build. Let's quickly move on to the next section where we talk about the Curious Crafting. Now, as this is an endgame build, it does feature Curious Crafting, but with Title Update 5, there's lots of ways to get the skills that are shown in this build either via Curious Crafting, or alternatively, you can edit the decorations slightly to produce similar results. So for the Tempest Crown, I've got a point in Knell of Hellfire. For the Tempest Robe, I've got a tier 2 decoration slot upgrade. For the Tempest Sleeves, I've got a point in Weakness Exploit and a reduction in the Latent Power skill. For the Omnio Aterbi, I've got a tier 4 decoration slot upgrade, as well as a point in the Spirit Bird Core skill. And then finally for the Tempest Hakama, I've got a point in the Evade Extender skill. But every build out there has various pros and cons. No build is absolutely perfect. Even these endgame builds, while they may be strong and powerful, they may have cons in that they're difficult to craft. Now, when it comes to this Heave-Sent build, its biggest pro is the Heave-Sent skill, giving us infinite stamina with minimal risk. The next pro is this build's damage output. While it may not be the highest damaging bow build out there, it's still able to bring down monsters quite quickly so long as you're countering them with the correct element. And then finally for the pros is that this build has excellent evasion capabilities. Embolden, Evade Window and Evade Extender, these will all aid in keeping us alive and more importantly keeping the Heave-Sent buff active so long as we're keeping an eye on a monster's attack pattern. But of course there are cons. The two major cons for this build include the fact that the build will have stamina issues before the Heave-Sent buff is active. Like I said, you can alleviate this slightly by changing your decorations and using some stamina management skills like refresh decorations or physique decorations. And the other con is unfortunately this is a decoration heavy build again. But then again, a lot of these endgame builds are decoration heavy builds. But if you're looking for an alternative bow build to the Berserk Strife combo that I tend to use, this is a nice alternative. It carries less risk in my opinion, and it doesn't require you to alter your gameplay style and constantly have to manage your health gauge. All of this while at the same time providing you strong damage outputs to take on anything that Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak can throw at you. But what are your thoughts? Please leave a comment down below, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you Endgame Heave-Sent Bow build. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.